Welcome to the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival's Filmmaker discussion with Cassidy Freeman and Bahman Tavoosi. Known for her roles in television's The Righteous Gemstones, Smallville, and Longmire, Cassidy Freeman is an actress and musician who has also acted in and produced the stunning New Mexico filmed feature-length drama Cortez. Bahman Tavoosi is joining us with his 2020 SFiFF feature, The Names of the Flowers, which is available in the festival's virtual film offerings. Bahman began his career as a journalist and filmmaker at the age of 18, creating short films in Tehran, the capital of Iran. Tavoosi then moved to Canada, where he directed the celebrated feature documentary, Dress Rehearsal for an Execution. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much again. Thank you. Pleasure to be there and to be able to present the film to Santa Fe Independent Film Festival audience virtually for the moment. Hopefully next year, we'll be physically in the festival.
Yeah, it's a strange year.
Sure.
Strange year. Where are you right now?
I'm in Egypt right now. There is a film festival happening here. I'm not invited to present the film because I already had my Egyptian premiere back in February. But I'm just as a guest invited to the festival. It's called El Guna Film Festival. Mm-hmm. And we are in a very nice city or resort called El Guna, waiting for the festival to start.
Beautiful.
Surprisingly, it's physical, partially virtual.
Yeah. What inspired you to put this film up for viewership in Santa Fe? What's your connection to Santa Fe, if any?
A lot about Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. I knew the festival since a few years ago, but interestingly enough, my director of photography of this film,
mm-hmm.
his name is Nicolas Tapurga. He's originally Bolivian, but he lives in Santa Fe now. It was his, recommendation more to just make sure that the film is presented in Santa Fe, and that was mainly his idea, and I just like the idea.
Mm-hmm. So your DOP is originally from Bolivia. I was going to ask, what was the
Bolivians, they're mainly Bolivians. My composer for the post-production crews, they were mainly Canadian, because the post-production was done in Canada. But the production and, the pre-production and all that was done in Bolivia, and cast and crew, they were entirely Bolivian.
Yeah. And did I notice at the end of the film that there was sort of like I made this for my mother?
Mm-hmm.
Was that you making it for your mother?
That's me making the film for my mother.
Great. Is there something about this particular subject matter that meant something to your mother?
Well, the protagonist of the film is a female character. My mother is not as aged as the lady in the film. She's much younger. But, the protagonist of the film, who is a retired teacher and who is a suffering mother in a way, because her son is locked up in prison and she struggles to bring the son back and so on. Because of that connection, because of the presence of a mother and a mother-son relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely thinking a lot about my mother when making the film.
Yeah.
It was a film that was meant to be dedicated to her.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I have to say it was one of the most visually stunning films I've seen in a very long time. You're welcome. Every single shot looked like a painting. And this is strange, but I actually lived in Bolivia. I went to university in Bolivia, which I didn't realize the movie, when I was asked to do the Q&A, took place in Bolivia. So it was as soon as I saw it, I was like, wait, what?
Where about in Bolivia? La Paz?
No, I lived in Cochabamba.
Cochabamba, okay.
Yeah. And I spent time in Santa Cruz because I went there to a theater festival that they were doing there. So for my independent study, I worked with a theater group that was indigenous, which was really incredible. But it meant something to me to see those views. But then even just seeing the photography was absolutely captivating. And I didn't know if you or your DP had an inspiration for that, or if Bolivia itself was the inspiration. You know what I mean? Like, did you have someone visually that you were working for, or did you sort of just show up and let magic do its work?
Speaking of Santa Cruz, as you know, Che Guevara was captured and killed in Santa Cruz, which has a very different, look and climate compared to La Paz. It's mainly
Very.
green, very tropical, etc. So the film firstly was supposed to be staged and shot in Santa Cruz, but
Oh, wow.
when I compared, Santa Cruz to Los Andes, to the highlands in La
Mhm.
Paz, it just there is so much to the look and the visual qualities that you get from Los Andes and from the highlands that eventually the film was decided to be shot there. At the beginning, it was rather a controversial decision because Che Guevara is a very well-known figure. His death place as well is a touristic place, I mean, a lot of tourists, a lot of visitors, a lot of Che Guevara passionates, they go there to see his death place and so on. So that dramatic change from Santa Cruz to La Paz was indeed a great decision to be made. And then I used this dramatic permission to do that. The director of photography didn't have that much of a role in that change, but he is there. I mean, his signature is there in every lighting, in every framing, and so on. I was very lucky to work with Nicholas, and prior to that, to work with a very beautiful scouting team who came with me, and we went different corners of the country for scouting and just chose the frames that we needed.
Mhm.
And we passed our homework, our frames to the director of photography, and then we started doing the whole decoupage. How do you say decoupage in English? The same thing, no? Decoupage?
Yeah.
We started doing that whole decoupage and desglosa and all that. And yes, we took it from there. And then through the process, we developed this communication. Or we made the communication to something easier and so on. Just
So
like
the
any
movie,
other communication.
yeah. So the movie was shot actually in La Paz or El Alto.
It was partially El Alto, the La Cumbre. Not El
Okay.
Alto, sorry, La Cumbre, the other way.
Mm-hmm.
La Cumbre, and then it was shot in a place called Miyuni. I'm not sure if you remember where the miners are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ghost village over there in Miyuni, partially Miyuni, partially La Cumbre. And there was another village, which I don't remember the name now, but it was some 2 hours from La Paz. We were
Yeah.
shooting in that village as well. Nothing in Santa Cruz.
No, it's not. It's not an easy place to film. It's not an easy place to breathe. I now understand, why she was always walking so slowly to bring the flowers. It was beautiful. The pace of the film was also very brave. And I say that as a full compliment. I think we watch films very differently now than we even did 10 or 15 years ago. And the pace of the film was brave and calming in a way. Something that I noticed now, knowing, because I didn't know where Che was captured and murdered. I actually was surprised at the lack of my knowledge of this subject, given that I felt so familiar watching the film. But knowing that, there was an element of the film that I really loved, which was sort of like getting to see the culture of these people. The scene where the man who's kind of running it with the glasses comes and he talks to the boy who's selling the water. That scene was so beautiful. And then also the scene where the mothers are sort of begging him to bring their sons home. These are moments in these people's lives, and you probably know this, but the indigenous groups in Bolivia change sort of in altitude. The Aymaras are up higher and the Quechuans are sort of in the middle. And so I wondered, like, what was the storytelling aspect of that particular culture, and what did you want to show by showing the people there, other than just the story of like who the real teacher was?
Sure. I had an interesting conversation with a journalist a couple of days earlier, and I was trying to tell him that I usually try to escape, from the cliches.
Mm-hmm.
For us, when it comes to Bolivia, the main representation, visual representation that we know of this country is some anthropological type of imagery, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Aymara culture dressed in their own costumes and then, the dances and the language and so on and so on. I did not want to make an anthropological film about Bolivia and so on. I had my own cinematic architecture, so to speak, in mind. And I want to take that architecture in Bolivia, yet stay connected with the realities of that country. You don't want to enforce neither your cinema onto something that just doesn't connect. So you have certain ideas in mind. The reality is there, and you guys meet in between. That's a type of cinema where you and reality meet in between. So when I got there, I had to adapt a lot of these ideas to the realities of Bolivian society. So many researches were done, and then about the whole Aymara culture, as you mentioned, and about how the institutions of law functions, such as that precise scene when the mothers run after the car. It's just impossible to stage that scene in Santa Fe or in New York or in Toronto. We don't have such, just the law doesn't function that way. But it functions in Bolivia. It might be the same way in Egypt as well. So you study, you adapt your ideas to the realities, and then, as I mentioned again, you meet in between, halfway.
I think that's really smart filmmaking, to be honest. And it is towing that line between something that is, documentary in nature or a true telling of history versus cinema, which has a storytelling aspect to it.
You're making somewhere that is not our home. You're far from home, wherever that home is. To you might be the States, to me might be Canada or Iran or whatever.
Right.
When you make films in a country, in a culture, that doesn't belong, or we don't belong to, it introduces its own challenges. Part of those challenges is this simply having a certain understanding of the reality of that country, society, language, culture, etc.
Yeah, I think the reason we're drawn to certain stories is because of their authenticity. And unless you can let that space speak for itself to a certain degree, you lose that element, even if it's not your language or through your lens. That's really smart. Something I loved. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to comment on the authenticity, and that's exactly why I was so keen on working with non-actors in the film. I mean, as much as you have the lightings and the mise-en-scènes of the director of photography, everything calculated and so on, but then you have also this raw and authentic element of the non-actors. There is no single professional actor in the film, So it's just meeting of these different cinematic energies, but also trying to, at the end, take these contradictory energies at the end to an interesting place.
Yep. Well, it's oftentimes the non-actors that sort of steal the scene because they do the thing that actors spend their lives trying to do, which is being normal, like not acting, just not being.
Acting, exactly. And that makes them more theatrical.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do nothing. And they're like, well, that's not interesting. And you're like, no, it's actually fascinating because it feels real.
For an actor to reach the stage of being automatic, as Bresson said famously, to make an actor not to think, but to become an automatic device that is functioning automatically. An actor needs to have a lot of effort to reach that stage, whereas a non-actor is there already.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's a
difference. That's very succinctly said. Another element I really liked of the storytelling was the writing, the woman who's reading the written word, the story, as it were. And I wondered, was that a story that you had read or one that you wrote? And why did you choose to have the written word on the screen rather than just a voiceover? I liked it, but I'm interested.
Sure. Well, no, it was a decision that was made in montage. I mean, prior to montage or editing, we didn't have the idea. We had the idea discussed between my editor and I, and so on. A few times I remember we addressed the idea and we talked about it. We even referred to other films at times, you know, that had the same use of text and basically voice and all that. But at the end of the day, yes, initially we didn't have the decision, made, and it was made through the dialogue that I had with Lucas Viegas, who is my editor, and partially the reason, partially why this decision was made, because the protagonist is mute. She never speaks. Mm? And the film doesn't have much dialogue either. It's a very, very quiet film. We could say the sound design is there, but dialogues, there are not too many dialogues. And then I thought that form of the text and the voices could be, in a way, complementary to the economy of sound that the film has.
It had a great effect on me in terms of, watching a bunch of films for this festival and watching film often in my life. And this film really asked me to slow down, and it had a storytelling element to it, sort of almost a calming effect that I admired, and I thought suited the film very well. God, you've been doing this since you were 18, I just learned. So that's early. You've been making films since you were 18?
A little bit younger than that. I was about 16. About 16 when I started making short films. It partially goes back to my acting background. I was a child actor at the age of like 9 and 10, and then I gave up on acting because I didn't find much interest in it. And then, so when at 16 I started making short films, it was in a way returning to film and cinema. And my father was also a film producer. He had produced a couple of films. So that made a little bit my introduction to the whole world of cinema and film a little bit easier, that background that I have.
Mm-hmm. And how long ago did you actually shoot this film?
So this film has a very interesting story. Look, first time we went to Bolivia, we want to make a documentary film. And that's 2014, a long time ago. And we went to Santa Cruz. I didn't like the material. Then we returned to Canada. And then I decided to change the whole idea to fiction film. I spent a couple of years on financing the film, development and all that. 2017, we shot I believe, to 35 days. 2018, we shot as well. That was 2 years of shooting.
Yeah.
And right away post-production. So in total, it's a project that has quite an interesting and long story. But shooting-wise, it was shot in 2 different years. And then that makes the whole continuity thing and everything very just a hassle, right?
Right. Every person who is in the film is Bolivian?
Everyone in the film is Bolivian. Or there are some Colombians too, as my assistants and so on. But the
not working on the film, but are actually like seen in the film.
Everyone seen in the film is Bolivian. That's right.
Yeah. It was just really beautiful.
Except, one shot at the end of the film, when the son is sleeping on the bed, that's me who is disguised as the son. Under the bed. Except me, the rest of the whole world are Bolivian.
Yeah. And you just sat there playing the clarinet, like in between takes. You were like, I'm going to play this. Just kidding. You may not actually play the clarinet.
It's a very difficult instrument, don't you?
It is. I know every reed instrument's very difficult. Who are if you could, and I know you probably have dozens, but your biggest film inspirations, like?
That's a difficult question. I'm sure
I know. It is.
Look, it's just like a puzzle, no? From each director and from each era and from each film, you just take the piece that you like and you put it there, you make a bigger picture, and you're just constantly working on that image. It's just, you're constantly developing that painting, that image. If I watch a film today and I find it interesting, I'm going to eventually, unconsciously, it's going to be added to that general understanding that you have.
Yeah.
So, I remember a friend of mine asked me to make a list of 100 films that influenced me, and it was just a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, no, I know, it's really hard.
It was very hard, right? But I can tell you this film, because I'm originally Iranian, and I had my earlier education in Iranian cinema, this film, I was rather keen on reflecting on the spirit of Iranian cinema that I was raised with, and those are, you know, the well-known masters of of Iranian cinema post-revolution. That is Abbas Kiarostami, and then even prior to revolution, some of these names you might know, some you might not know. The other one is Sohrab Shahid Saleh and so on. There was we imagine a certain spirit for the Iranian cinema because of their use of non-actors and the scenery and the locations and so on. And I just wanted to reflect that a little bit as a homage, you know, as
Yeah.
a respect, so to speak, to that whole culture and the spirit. And I brought a little bit of that Oriental Iranian energy, cinematic energy, all the way to South America, Bolivian highlands, you know, with this film.
What are you working on now?
I'm basically, I have a few things in mind. I'm investigating on each and to see which one would be the project that you want to spend again another 5-6 years of your life. You know, that's how usually it works, right?
Yeah.
If you're not doing the film in your own city or your country, it's always, you know, it has its own challenges.
For sure.
And I haven't been to Iran for many years, and you know, in Canada, I haven't developed anything, you know, particularly for Canada either. So I'm always dealing with these challenges of other languages, other cultures, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing your film with us.
I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.